This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. What's good, y'all? It's season 5 of the Past BT Pod with your host, BT. We have a new season here, and it's time to get this show going. As you all know, we talk about sports. Sports won't be as big of a carrier this year. I think we'll be carrying more towards the stuff, and predominantly on the sports side, you'll be hearing more from the musical aspect, but we will still be talking about technical. We'll be giving you the video game content. I will still be going over the ass of the week. We'll definitely be passing the message. You'll be getting an angel number and you'll get quite a few gems. So sit back, relax, take your time. Don't waste your time. This is the Past BT with your host, Brian. What is up? What is good? Episode 325 of The Past is here. I'm your host, BT, with yet another episode. Had a little bit of a technical difficulty when I initially started, so I had a nice little intro packaged up, but you'll just have to catch that next time you tune in, or it might be an archive. Who knows? I might have to, and there might be something I'm going to consider, is to save some of the, because as much as I've recorded, and I'll talk about this at least, as much as I've recorded and done intros, there are a lot of intros that have bloopers or have mistakes and errors that never make it to the airwaves. And I might think about it. I may make an audio cut or audio clip of some of those down the line. I don't have any of them saved currently, but that might be something to consider for future episodes, because it's fun, because I think a lot of people, when they hear me or when they realize that I've got the content up, it's like, oh man, the content is so crisp, it's so clear. And I'm like, if only y'all knew the amount of mistakes and the amount of bumbles and fumbles that happen on an average episode. So I'll consider making that a thing for future episodes, to let you all know that I'm just as human as the next person with what I'm doing. And I'm over here now fumbling the bag, literally. So we'll regroup, regather, and start back from the beginning with our angel number. So angel number 325. In the world, we have different races that practice different cultures, but all people use numbers in one way or another. They may write it in a different way, be different in pronunciation, but the symbolism of numbers may be the same across the board. The angel number 325 may be written differently or pronounced differently, but the message from your guardian angel is important to everyone who has encountered it under different circumstances and in different places. The message from angel number 325 is that everything you want to achieve is within your powers. If you concentrate so much on your shortcomings, then there is no room for growth. You have been blessed with a mind that can come up with progressive ideas. Your angel numbers say that all you need to do is to get up and grab a share in this vast world. In the world today, there are so many people who were born with nothing, but they have used their talent, skills, and charm to grow and realize their dreams and aspirations. Angel number 325 says that if you do not have the finances, but you do have an idea, use what your creative mind has been able to come up with to look for investors to invest in your project. That will be the stepping stone for you. Once you have accomplished the desired results from the first project, you can then use the proceeds to work on your next project. Knowledge is power, because that is the only thing that no one can steal from you. The attribute for number 3 is for you to think ahead. As you work today, have foresight and make plans for the future. That way you will be focused on what needs to be done at a particular time, and you will save on your time and energy. Number 2 attributes to having and maintaining good and healthy associations with people around you. This will create ground for your progression because there will be minimal friction between you and your peers. Try and venture out on your own. Be your own kind of person. Uniqueness is the attribute for number 5. The message from your angel number 325 is for you to use the abilities that you have been blessed with to develop yourself. If that didn't hit any of y'all, I would go back and just about 1:30 mark and just listen to this again. And the only reason I'm saying that is because that resonated with me very intensely without trying. I have, when you're born in, when you start off in the world, you're figuring out who you are. You're figuring out what you're into. As time progresses, you develop those skills and those characteristics. One characteristic that has stuck with me has been and will forever be computers. There's a reason why when I first did this podcast, it was very sports heavy. But then as time progressed, I made it tech heavy because I love technology. Like I have it as one of the topics now. We're going to talk about Samsung Unpacked. And I have something that's interesting in the Apple Samsung quote unquote battle that I always notice every year, and just how timing is very, very key to things. But outside of those factors, it's just everything in these, like each week that I read these, they hit from a very different place. Like this week, it's no different. Maintaining good and healthy associations and relationships with people is very important to me. I won't even say for anyone who's listening, I hope it's important to you. And if it is, that's awesome. And that's you getting it right for you. But personally, I will be very transparent in saying good relationships and good connections is what's kept me on the right path. I'll share one story and then we'll chop it up about what's going on or what has gone on this week with in the sports world. I've gotten the same message from different places, but the more that I would hear the message, the more that it was clear and evident that I needed to receive the reality of that message. And lately it's almost like it just came at me at full speed, and I need to really take it in for what it's worth, which is what I'm finally beginning to do and make more relevant to who I am and what I'm about. So I'm just sharing that and making that statement because I know for a fact that a lot of times I want things to work how I want it to work. But a lot of times I have to be patient with life, and most of all, be patient with myself. So, little stuff that I'm working on, like I think I've talked about it on the show before, but I'm sharing it with you all now. Like introducing my friends to what's called the feelings wheel. I would have never thought it would be a big thing, but now it's an interesting feeling because now you're not limited to I'm doing okay, or I'm not doing that well, or I'm making it, or I'm getting by, or life is good. It's what word or what statement, like what pairs of words define where you are in your headspace. And if I have not already, I'll be sure to make that a post on the podcast because I want to make that one to really get people to understand, like, it's okay to not be in the best of moods every single day. It's okay to be human and like not really want to be bothered with anybody. Like we've all been down that road, whether we want to claim being down that road or not. And I know personally that road has been what's gotten me to be more comfortable and open with who I am and what I'm about. So I'm just sharing that with you all to give you an understanding. Like you can be human and not be in the greatest of moods or greatest of spaces and not feel bad about it. Because I think sometimes we feel so bad of we're not doing well, but then we also don't take time to really look at it as you went through whatever you went through and you succeeded. So now you're on the other side. That means you keep pushing, you keep pressing. And that's just kind of what it is. Well, like I said earlier, like I said a couple seconds ago, we're in the sports world. I've been teeter-tottering like back and forth about sports a little bit. I've watched games as I can. It's kind of been, for me at least, with basketball, it's more so when the playoffs comes, I'll give it more attention. Because in most cases, when games come on, like my schedule will change. So my schedule now is more during the day, I'm in the grind mode. And in the evening, I'm in grind mode and creating as well as working on things. So I'm not really looking at, who's playing today, or my personal fave. Okay, SportsCenter's got highlights on. Let me see who's playing or what games came on. Because it's giving you the same flair and the same feel. But to say what I was saying, you get an abbreviated version. Like, I mean, I'm guilty. I'm going to say it before we get to it. The Samsung Unpacked event happened this past week. And I knew the date and the time of when it was going to happen. I couldn't watch it. But, of course, you have workarounds. You have ways to get things done. My workaround and my way of getting things done, find a 10-minute version of it, get everything you need, and you have content. And that's what I've done at times. So it just might be time to get back to doing that again. And if I need to, then I'm okay with that. Like, I think a lot of it, too, is that I've kind of lost my attachment to shows like ESPN. I've lost my attachment to, say, who's a good example? To TNT. Like, shows or stations that show basketball, I haven't really been watching because it's just not been something that I've been thinking like, oh man, let me turn the game on and see who's playing. And that could be something to work on, like to kind of have that true relaxed time of just getting the game up and watch. And I won't even say have it as background noise, but just actually get, a good highlight or two in. Like I will admit, and I'll say it because it's just the reality of it. When I was active on Clubhouse, and I know I'm on a random tangent without talking about the actual topic that y'all coming for with the NBA. But when I was using Clubhouse as often as I am, and anyone who's listening to the podcast that is in Clubhouse, I'm going to say this to make things clear. I have not been on Clubhouse as much because, and the number one thing I did, which a lot of people probably already been doing this, but for me, I needed to do it, is I turned off notifications. Like, I was getting notifications to rooms, to either rooms were getting ready to open or I was being invited to a room, and I'm just like, I'll go if I feel the need or the urge to go, but I'm not personally putting that effort behind myself to say I need to go over and check all this out. But I'm saying I'm referencing Clubhouse because I would sit in, and when they would do game time, I would actually watch games with some folks in the group, and it generated good conversation. It actually kept me more on my feet with basketball, but also like my routine changed a lot too because we're going back to school. So just giving y'all the reality of it and just knowing like I got to put my best foot forward and be the best version of me because that's what it's about at the end of the day. The NBA is getting down to the wire. So most teams they're at about the 63 game mark. So most teams have, give or take, 10 to 12 games remaining. Give or take. And I say that very loosely. If you are or aren't aware, the NBA is doing something a little different this year. Personally, I think it's more on a profit-based plan, but that's my immediate tangent or way of looking at it. They're doing play-in games this year. And I may sound crazy for saying this. I really don't see the play-in games as a huge issue. What basically occurs is your 1 through 6 seeds are your locked in seeds. 7 through 10 play in for, they pretty much have a set. 7 through 10 on the eastern and the western side will play in, and they will play against each other. And the winners of those two matches end up going into the actual seeds for the 8th seed and the 7th seed. So, for instance, right now they give you a view of if the playoffs started today. Right now, Phoenix is the 1 seed. Brooklyn is the one. Phoenix is the 1 seed on the East. In the West. Brooklyn is the 1 seed on the East. Their 8th seed matchup is going to be based on whoever they play. Let me make sure I'm looking at this. Okay. All right, I got it now. Because I had to look at it because it's like it's shown weird and it's almost like you got to freestyle it to figure it out. So we'll say for the sake, we'll go over the West, and I'm gonna give it real condensed because I don't want to bore y'all half to death with all this. Season ends right now. Phoenix is the number 1. Utah's number 2. Clippers is number 3. Denver's number 4. Lakers are number 5. Keep an eye on that. We'll get to that in a bit. And Dallas is number 6. They are all secured in their 6 spaces as of right now. They haven't secured playoff berths. A couple teams have clinched, and we'll go over those in a second. 7, 8, 9, and 10 then go into a playoff battle. So how that works is the 2 teams are going to play. The 7 and 8 teams are going to play against each other. And then the 9 and 10 teams are going to play against each other. The winner of the 9 and 10 games goes on to that next matchup. Same for the 7 and 8. Between those 2 games, between that game, between whoever won in the 9-10 game and the 7-8 game, the winner of that matchup goes on to become the 8th seed. No, the winner goes on to become the 7th seed. The loser goes on. I got to look at this because I'm confused. Maybe I'm looking at it and thinking about it too hard. We can always use the internet because I want to understand how this is going to work. Because that way I can explain it to you all without sounding like I don't know anything about basketball. All right. Give me 1 sec. We're gonna learn this together because I am always, as many of you, if you aren't aware, if you're new to this show, we learn on the fly, and I am here to learn on the fly. All right. So the play-in tournament is structured like this. At the conclusion of the regular season, but before the first round of the playoffs, the team with the 7th highest winning percentage in each conference will host the team with the 8th highest winning percentage in a play-in game. They would then be going for, it would be known as the 7-8 game. The winner of the 7-8 game in each conference will earn the number 7 seed. The teams with the 9th highest winning percentage in each conference will host a team with the 10th highest winning percentage in the 9-10 game. The loser of the 7-8 game will then host the winner of the 9-10 game in a play-in game, and the winner of that game in each conference will earn the 8th seed. If that didn't make sense to you all, I promise it didn't make sense to me either. The winners of the play-in tournament will receive the 7th and 8th seeded positions. Following the play-in tournament, the NBA playoffs will commence with the traditional 16-team best-of-7 series structure. Now, those games are going to be one game. It's not like best of anything. It's one game. One team wins, one team is either sent home or whatever the case may be. So we're not going to worry with any of that right now. As of right now, in the Eastern Conference, Brooklyn is number 1 and Philly is number 2. They both clinched. Now they're going to be bouncing back and forth in that position. I give them a couple more games. I feel like Milwaukee's going to secure 3. New York, I see New York kind of being a lock-in for 4. Surprise of the year right now. Atlanta being 5th as of right now. Boston is 6th. And your 4 teams fighting for a space are Miami, Charlotte, Indiana, and the Wizards. Below them, Chicago and Toronto are right outside fighting to get into a play-in game. Cleveland, I think, is going to mathematically eliminate themselves soon. Don't know when. Orlando and Detroit mathematically eliminated. That's why I was wondering when someone said the other day. They were like, yeah, Detroit's in. I was like, Detroit got a chance? But now looking at this, I'm like, okay, yeah, Detroit's kind of on the outside looking in. Going to the West, Phoenix and Utah have clinched. The Clippers are a couple of games behind Utah, so they should clinch in a few games. Denver's looking at the 4th seed. The Lakers, I don't know why I want to say the Cavs. The Lakers are 5. Dallas is 6. Outside of that space, you're looking at your main battle is between Portland, Memphis, San Antonio, Golden State. Golden State, I think if they can go on a good run, will help make their case. And New Orleans is right on the outside. They're looking at it as Sacramento probably has a strong chance of being eliminated. And already Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and Houston are mathematically eliminated. Houston, it's been a sucky year, and that's all I got to say. Even worse, watching, I think they were making like the stat of, I think Kevin Porter Jr. was the youngest player to have 50 points and 10 assists. And I was like, they're playing and I'm okay with him getting the green light because he can play. I just really hope that I hope it goes on full display next season. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing him, Christian Wood, and John Wall play together. Unless something crazy happens, I don't know if John Wall's leaving, but who knows? We'll see when we get there. He already shut it down. As soon as they shut him down, I was like, we're going lottery bound. I don't know if we've done any retarded trades yet, but I also know, like, if anything, we need to get an opportunity in utilizing, like, getting a chance to get, if anything, if we have that space to get it, I'm all for getting Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, or Suggs can come to our team. Bottom line, that's it. I don't have nothing else to say about it, and else we'll go with that and move forward. But those are the seedings as of right now with the NBA. It's going to change, of course. By next week, we may start to hear more teams be secured for playoff seeds, so I'll keep that as a tab for the next episode. The NFL draft is actively going on as of right now. I probably have missed a couple of picks so far. Yeah, so far they're about... So they are about 9 to 10 picks into the draft. So they'll be showing those. They'll have that all actively going on. But we're not going to get you into the now, because if we do, we won't have a podcast to get done. We'll go back to the obvious. A lot of people were surprised by a lot of picks. So I'm not gonna. I put in my personal notes, I put round 1, round 2, round 3. But I will say this. I looked at the first 10 picks. The one thing that blew my mind is, and I didn't know this until after the fact. I need to make sure I have this information correct before I say it. Okay. He was the 10th pick. It amazes me that the Heisman winner was picked 10th in an NFL draft, and he was one of the best wide receivers. Now, there were 2 other wide receivers picked in front of him, and Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, who Waddle was one of his teammates. So I also think it's still a respect factor, but I brought up this point in a sports group because it's relevant it's very relevant and very key to think of. No one cares what pick a player is in a draft as far as for the game itself. Where it becomes an impact is to the player themselves and also to the team that they go to, or even worse, what happens after they get drafted. Because a lot of guys get drafted in NBA and the NFL. They might play 1 or 2 good years and then we don't hear about them anymore. Evan Turner. If you don't know who that is, pull up the NBA website and look for Evan Turner. Evan Turner, I think, should be going into, if not at his 12th or 13th year in the league. He's been on the scene for a minute, and it just amazes me that it's certain guys who play that we hear about, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Like they made a huge hit on this, and it was a great example. They talked about Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell couldn't read a playbook. He was the number one pick in the draft. The Raiders put everything they could into making it look like he had a chance. He blew his opportunity. End of story. Trey Lance went to San Francisco, which generated millions of questions about what's going to happen with Jimmy G. I'll go ahead and get mine out of the way. Carolina picked up J.C. Horn from South Carolina, and they say he's related to another player, but I can't remember who that player was they mentioned. But I like the pick. He's a cornerback, and it was a good pick. Everyone's been making a riff because of Carolina deciding to trade Bridgewater or make a trade for Darnold only to trade Bridgewater, which I saw was coming. And I think they picked up a wide receiver in the second round. For the most part, though, it wasn't an outrageously horrible draft, at least from the first round perspective. I asked this question in my sports group. I'll ask this to you all. Who do you think is going to win more games this upcoming season? Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence? If you are or aren't aware, Joe Burrow was the number one pick in last year's draft. Burrow didn't play much. He didn't play the entire season last year due to injury. So hopefully this year he could, really show out. I need to double check. I don't think they have AJ Green, so that's something that alarms me a little bit. But, hey, anything's, as the term is used and as I like to say it, anything can happen at any time and at any point. So I definitely have my eyes, as I like to call it, I have my eyes on the prize as to how that all could possibly play out for him. Wow, that was loud. If y'all heard that, ooh, definitely, I need to go get some real food. Anyway, like I said, it wasn't anything like too huge of a story in the draft. The big story, that was a big story. I said there wasn't anything too huge in that. I thought the big story, but another big story was after Devontae Smith got picked number 10, the question then became, was anybody going to draft Justin Fields? Because I personally thought Fields would have went higher. But I guess, of course, it comes down to team needs. But Justin Fields ended up going number 11 to Chicago. Not a bad pick. It's going to generate the questions of what's going to happen with Trubinsky, things of that nature. And then they were pointing out Mac Jones being picked number 15 by New England. Personally, that gives me concern about Cam. I think Cam's going to be their guy, but they also still making that, it just isn't, it's going to be a tough run to see how this all plays out, in its entirety. They also made a stink about the fact that the Packers picked a cornerback in the first round from Georgia, in Eric Stokes, instead of picking a wide receiver, because you're trying to figure out ways of how to bring players in to keep Aaron Rodgers. Because the big talk this week was Aaron Rodgers wanted out of Green Bay. I didn't put that as a story because that was kind of the gist of it. Aaron Rodgers wants out. Jimmy G wants out of San Fran. Is there? And I'm not an analyst. I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to use a little bit of logic here. The only problem with this trade is you have to make it tangible to both teams. How can I say this? Can Rodgers and Jimmy G be traded for each other and include some picks or possibly some players to get both teams what they want? Just an idea. Just throwing it out there. The other challenge of it, or the other battle, is if you trade Aaron Rodgers, you're getting Jimmy G back. but you want to be sure you have stability at your backups in case if you were to get Jimmy G, that you have that piece or that part covered. So that's something to look at as well. All right, y'all. Sorry about that. Had a little hiccup, little delay, but we're back. So we have our next story up on the sports agenda. The Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul fight will be happening. And that'll be on June 6th at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. First question I have without knowing it is, I wonder who will be there. How the fan consumption will be. We know this is going to be a pay-per-view fight. It's a given. Anyone that's oblivious or isn't aware knows for a fact this is going to be a pay-per-view fight. So that's like the least of our concerns. I think our bigger question is, what direction is the content for this going to go? And also, could it be a chance that this will be affected by, Floyd being undefeated? If he loses this match, like, does he still keep his undefeated record, or how does that all work? So he's going to return to the ring to face Logan Paul. The fight was originally scheduled for February, but was postponed indefinitely until Tuesday's announcement. In February, it was billed as a special exhibition. The announcement didn't specify how many rounds they will fight or what size gloves they will use. Additional details on rules of the fight and the undercard will be released soon, according to FanMio, a platform that connects fans with celebrities through online experiences. Mayweather retired after defeating Conor McGregor back in 2017 at the T-Mobile Arena. He has won titles as a junior lightweight, junior welterweight, and junior middleweight. Logan Paul is the older brother of Jake Paul, who recently defeated Ben Askren by first-round knockout. Logan... That's okay. Now it all makes sense because I got confused for a second. I guess I had my fights mixed up. Logan Paul lost a split decision to fellow YouTube star KSI, whose real name is Olajide William Olatunji, in November of 2019, which to this day, by the way, is still one of the biggest. That was one of the biggest fights that came on TV or on the internet at one time, because I think there was so much behind it, especially with the mere fact that KSI was in the midst of his transition with boxing, or in the midst of his transition with doing boxing, because he was more known for FIFA and just, doing different videos of that sort. So I got that gave me a little clarity, because I knew Jake Paul. So Jake Paul fought Ben Askren. And if I'm not mistaken, Jake Paul is the same one who fought Nate Robinson, if I'm remembering my fights correctly. And I could be wrong. I don't know. So many of them. So these are all like different matches they had before. Okay. Got it. But this, I guess, will be considered as an actual fight. If nothing bars it from occurring and it actually does become a fight that happens, Floyd Mayweather will probably beat the brakes off him. But he's also a very tactful fighter, so it's going to be a lot different. That's what I'm thinking of with this as well. Boxing is a love-hate thing for me, only because it's already tough as it is with other sports being very physical or very athletic, like graphically athletic. I don't know how to word it, but I just have never been big on the boxing thing. But I'm also then too, I think the other side of it is because I'm not a big fan of fighting. If I can avoid fighting at all costs, I'm down. But then, of course, if it turns into, okay, if I got to fight, fine, let's go ahead and do it. If I win, I win. If I don't, then I gave my best effort. So when that fight occurs, we'll rotate back around to having that conversation about how that went or how it could have went and all that type of jazz. So that's what I have for that story. Spotify owner Arsenal Legends planning bid to buy the club. So a consortium led by Spotify owner Daniel Ek, and including 3 former Arsenal players, is planning a sensational bid to buy the Northern London club, sources have told ESPN. Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and Patrick Vieira are involved in a move that will test the resolve of American owners, Cronky Sports Enterprises, who insisted at a fans forum Thursday that they had no intention of selling the club. Sources have told ESPN that there could be a formal offer tabled within the next 2 weeks, although it is unclear at this stage what valuation they are placing on Arsenal. In a message posted on Twitter, Ek asked, "As a kid growing up, I've cheered for Arsenal as long as I can remember. If KSE would like to sell Arsenal, I'd be happy to throw my hat in the ring." Sources have told ESPN this interest is genuine, but former Arsenal midfielder Matthew Flamini, rumored to be one member of the consortium, is not part of the group. Forbes estimates the Gunners are worth just over €2 billion. Ek is worth an estimated €3.4 billion and would have little problem raising the funds necessary to buy the club. Kroenke took full control of Arsenal in August 2018 after buying out rival shareholder Alisher Usmanov in a €550 million deal, which valued the club at €1.8 billion. And to get more information about this transaction. My $1 million question is, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and it's just something to think about. Is him coming to is Spotify buying this team gonna get, or them joining, like having Spotify and those players like participate? I have a lot of eye-opening things to take away from this, because if they get involved with this, when venues open up and have capacity, are you going to have the stadium be more Spotify branded? Will this bring winning back to Arsenal because they haven't won a Premier League in a while? That's another thing that I'm thinking about. Now, like I said, I'm looking at those odd intangibles that everyone else is going to look at, but that's the position that I'm being placed in as a fan and as an observer of the activity. So I look at those factors and see how this goes. I mean, it'll be a big deal, but if it actually happens, then it will tell you that there will be a unique climate. I mean, we already know that LeBron is like a part owner of Liverpool, which I found interesting. Like, as soon as he got on board with Liverpool, they won a Premier League championship. Now, granted, Liverpool played a good year, had a good season last year, but I just found that, like, timing was impeccable. They won the Premier League. The Lakers won the championship. Yeah, we see it. Tampa Bay won early this year. I'm watching what you're doing, sports. I'm paying attention now. Trust me, I promise you. I go up like that was life-threatening. Our final sports story is a big deal. This has not happened since 2013. And that is there will be a gentleman in the race. I was ready to say on the field. I'm like, wait, this isn't a field. In the race, named Kendrick Carmucci, who will be the first black jockey in the Kentucky Derby since 2013. Long before Kendrick Carmucci started riding horses, growing up in Louisiana, black jockeys were synonyms with the sport. Black riders were atop 13 of the 15 horses in the first Kentucky Derby in 1875 and won 15 of the first 28 editions of the race. Everything has changed since. Carmucci on Sunday will be the first black jockey in the Kentucky Derby since 2013 and is just one of a handful over the past century. Carmucci is one of the few remaining black jockeys in the United States. Much like Marlon St. Julian in 2000, Patrick Husbands in 2006, and Kevin Krieger in 2013, His presence in horse racing's biggest event is a reminder of how the industry marginalized black jockeys to the point they all but disappeared from the sport. As a black rider getting to the Kentucky Derby, I hope it inspires a lot of people because my road wasn't easy to get here and I never quit. What I've been wanting all my career is to inspire people and make people know that it's not about color. It's about how successful you are in life and how far you can fight to get to that point. Carmucci is the son of a jockey and has won more than 3,400 races and earned $118 million since beginning to ride professionally in 2000. Dang, you've been doing this for 20-some years and I'm in the wrong sport. We're going to close the podcast and let me go learn how to ride horses. Because if it's that kind of money in mid-podcast, y'all, he came back from a broken leg 3 years ago and set himself up for his first Kentucky Derby mount by riding 72-1 long shot Bourbonic to victory on the Wood Memorial on April 3rd. Bourbonic will leave from the 20th post in Saturday's race at Churchill Downs. He is also a rarity in a sport now dominated by jockeys from Latin America. Obviously, there haven't been many in recent decades, but if you go back to the early years of the Derby, the late 1800s, early 1900s, black jockeys dominated Kentucky Derby. And they're going to get more information about the Kentucky Derby. Random story, but I saw it come up as a feed, so I'll share it. It's kind of weird because it ties into sports, but not really. They have stated that Aaron Rodgers is attending the event. They say Rodgers pulls up to the Derby. He's living his best life despite all the trade rumors. And I'm going to assume, have a picture of him at the event. And I had to look for a second. I was like, wait, which one is him? Okay, he's on the far left. All right, so he's with his significant other, I'm guessing. But yeah, okay, cool. So random minutia, but it is what it is. This is a monumental story, and I'm not. Let me be clear. It's a monumental story. It's just a unique, monumental story in the sense that it's been 8 years since it happened. Along with, there aren't many now who are participating because there's a different view towards it from when this was occurring. In the 1800s, you're looking at not long. If I'm, you're still kind of in the midst of slavery, if I'm not mistaken. I might be freestyling a little bit because my history knowledge is trash. But yeah, steps to steps. Yay. If it crosses my mind to watch it at the point when it comes on, I'll be sure to bring up or look at the actual event when it occurs on TV, because the Kentucky, everything that builds up to the Kentucky Derby is hours. Like the walkthroughs, the jockeys, the horses, the people who attend. They'll show folks in suits. The gambling on it this year is going to be insane because this is going to be the first year that you'll have a more open realm to gambling for it. So that's something also to look at too. And who a lot of people may or may not be rooting for in the event. So that is that story on that end. As I prepare and get everything set up for our stuff, I want everyone to know that it's definitely an uphill road. And I guess, you know what, this is going to kind of be like we can call this like a mid sports and stuff story because it's sports oriented, but it's also stuff oriented. So I'll have this be kind of like the balanced transition because I was like, yeah, wait, it's stuff. But then I was like, hold on, this is related to ESPN. DraftKings spends $50 million on the former ESPN podcast, The Dan Le Batard Show. About 6 companies were reportedly in a bidding war to secure these rights. One of the most sought after sports podcasts has an unlikely new home. Moving forward, DraftKings will help distribute the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz. According to the Wall Street Journal, the 3-year deal is worth at least $50 million. DraftKings plans to make money on the podcast by selling advertisement as well as licensing to other platforms. In practice, that means the show will continue as a podcast for the next couple of weeks. Then starting in June or early July, DraftKings will expand its distribution to include YouTube and Twitch. And then beyond that, radio and television. In effect, that will give the show a similar reach to the one it enjoyed when it was on ESPN. The company will also help expand the reach of other shows that are part of the wider Le Batard and Friends network. Meanwhile, Meadowlark Media, the company Le Batard co-founded with former ESPN president John Skipper after leaving the sports broadcast in January, plans to use the money from the agreement to develop new podcasts, original documentaries, and more. If y'all looking for somebody that want to do a podcast, hey, I'm ready. According to the Miami Herald, about 6 companies were in a bidding war to secure the show. One of those was reportedly SiriusXM, which announced it had picked up 99% invisible yesterday. Le Batard told the paper that he went with DraftKings because he didn't want his show locked into behind a paywall. Another important factor, which I always am a fan of. That's why I'm going to talk about that before I continue this article. There's a reason I like doing this podcast. Like, I've talked about it, and I've ran the idea in my head a couple times where I'm like, oh man, I would love to get like exclusive information or exclusive podcast content that you don't hear on the airwaves, but put it behind a paywall. It's a good thing and a bad thing, because you also, if you put it behind the paywall, you're taking a risk of, if I make this paywall, it has to be suitable for those who are a part of it or are going to get something out of it. Because if they don't, they'll make the first payment, but it's not about the first payment. It's about getting you back for month 8 or month 30. So something to think about. This deal allows Meadowlark to be profitable from the start and have total freedom to do what we want, he said. We can go forward and appear everywhere. We can make a partnership anywhere we want. We don't have any corporate overlord. Our partner is our sponsor, and what they are sponsoring is our freedom. DraftKings is a gold mine, because between DraftKings, FanDuel, and gambling being a nationwide big deal, this will be a win-win. It's not going to seem like it now, but trust and believe it is definitely a win-win. As I said, this will transition a little bit into stuff, because the previous article was from Engadget, and I want to make sure I give credit before I continue. ESPN, Bleacher Report, Engadget, The Verge, Kotaku, CNET, all of you have been helpful in me keeping this podcast going. So I want to take time. And there have been other sites. Fred, aka my roommate, has helped me with stories from Apple News. I've gotten a lot of information from there as well. And I may talk about an answer of the week. I don't know yet. We'll see, because it's been like, okay, stories, but not stories. But anywho, earlier this week, Samsung unpacked the Galaxy Book Pro, the Galaxy Book, I believe, and the Pro 360. There were quite a few computers that they had on display. So I know they had the Galaxy Pro, the Pro 360, the Galaxy Books Odyssey was talked about, and we're gonna go into these a little bit, because I did actually, like I said, I personally can watch the keynote, but in most cases it's better for me to just get a condensed version of, hey, what happened? What did they really get into that's going to keep or get people's attention? They launched the company's lesser known, at least in the US, the Galaxy Book laptops. Today's new model start at $999 for the Galaxy Book Pro and $1199 for the Pro 360. And new budget Galaxy Book and mainstream $1399 Galaxy Book Odyssey gaming laptops. The Galaxy Books are Samsung's line of laptops designed for more connected operation, thin, light, and intended to work with the rest of the company's products, including its SmartThings smart home tech. This year, the company highlighted seamless operation between Windows and Android, and overall it now exceeds, and now it sounds, they are sharing what I will get into in a moment. And overall, it now sounds eerily like Apple's ecosystem. Ooh. But with the extra perk of touchscreens that make it even more phone-like. Okay. The Galaxy Book and Galaxy Book Pro models were designed in conjunction with Microsoft and Intel and bear Intel's Evo branding for its current gen light and responsive laptops, incorporating Thunderbolt 4 up to an 11th gen Core i7. That's going to sell me because I am loving my Mac, but i5, it's almost time. Wi-Fi 6E and processing optimized for conferencing. Intel says it's the thinnest Evo design yet. Samsung claims they weigh only 2.2 pounds, including the charger. The Galaxy Book Pro is a clamshell, while the Pro 360 is, as you might expect, a 2-in-1. Both come in 13 and 15 inch and gold, blue, or bronze. Both incorporate OLED displays with Samsung's built-in low blue light technology. The Pro 360 supports the S Pen stylus, which is bundled. They have Mac OS-like live wallpaper that changes with the time of day. The keyboard has lower travel at 1 millimeter, but refined scissor switches for better bounce. So if anyone remembers, the scissor switch for their keyboard is equivalent to the butterfly keyboard that was the biggest struggle and the most tremendous frustration that Mac did. And I'll say this on record because I'm open to being honest about devices. That keyboard formula when they did it is one of the biggest reasons why I haven't left Mac. Or I'm sorry, why I haven't gotten a new MacBook. Because what I'm getting with this, typing on this keyboard is very seamless and very stress-free. So that's why I've stuck with it. Samsung claims you'll be able to get 16 hours of work time out of the denser battery and up to 8 hours on a 30-minute charge. The latter is an Evo requirement. While they're optimized for portability and have updated noise-canceling mics, they still have only 720p webcams. And while the Pro 360 incorporates 5G, it won't be coming to the US until later. And that's something you got to remember. Getting 1080p into a camera, hard-baked into a computer is not easy. This gives me the sense that you could possibly be getting the dongle view, the dongle vibes. I don't know. And anyone who doesn't understand what that means, get a computer that does not have USB ports and come back and talk to me. And you'll know what the dongle vibes are. That's another reason why I haven't made my switch yet. The loudness in that sound, if you all heard that, my bad. The 15-inch Galaxy Book also bumps up to the 11th gen Intel Core CPUs and adds 4G LTE connectivity. A new Galaxy Book Odyssey goes with RTX 3050 Ti and 11th gen Tiger Lake. They won't be available in the US initially either, though the Odyssey is expected to start shipping here in August. The last Galaxy Books were announced in October 2019, but most didn't ship until May 2020. The new models are shipping much sooner. There's a lot more syncing among Galaxy devices via proprietary apps that, to me, look like the start menu bloat. There's an individual app for everything, just like a phone, though they are the same apps as on the phones. Photos natively integrates with OneDrive. Use your Samsung tablet as a second screen and drag and drop files between devices. I think that's an amazing feat too, because I'm going to be very honest. Unless you have a iPad and or Mac capable of doing it without a third-party program, it's very frustrating when you're like, oh, I got another screen. I can just turn this screen into an added screen to work on stuff. But that is where it's a business. You're wanting to get products or get consumers to get more, spend more to use more. And that's kind of the tangled web that's weaved with the tech world. I'll share this because I read the article, but I want to point out one thing because it's very important, very key to look at. I found the timing to be very unique of how Apple brought out their keynote last week and Samsung did theirs a week later. And it's always going to be how system or technology wars don't go anywhere, because it makes people go against each other without going against each other. And we'll get into the in a few we'll get into the CES event, which I think this year it shouldn't be too bad. I think they're still going to do some virtual announcements, which I'm all for that. But the war continues. It's only May. I think it's next month. I'm looking forward, or I'm keeping my eyes open on what's coming from E3 if that becomes a thing. And that's what I have for that. So I like what Samsung did with these products. They even gave you a breakdown of showing where if you open up if you have your Galaxy earbuds, when you open it, you can see it on your screen, like how much your battery life is. I think little things like that is what Apple needs to get to that next level. Like a lot of things Apple is next level with, but it's other things that they are way behind on. And as a consumer of technology, I'm open to being honest on both sides of what does and doesn't work. Some things are seamless, but some of it can be a little frustrating. And you at the end of the day, the consumer wants simplicity. It doesn't matter if they're using a Windows computer. I mean, they're using a Windows phone for all they care. If the Windows phone is not giving them the simplicity they want, they're going to get another phone. There's a reason why people have remained frozen with BlackBerries, because it's the simplicity for what you're doing with it is what it's all about. Like you're not buying and I say this multiple times, you will never see someone own a BlackBerry playing Spotify from a BlackBerry. Just sharing that with you all in a clear and concise understanding. This is gonna sound nuts. If I were to ever see somebody with a BlackBerry and they open up Instagram, I would be worried. Especially with the simple fact that from the OG BlackBerries without that weren't touchscreen, everything ran and was trusted through your main button. If your main button didn't work on that, you were in trouble. But with touchscreen devices, that's also a battle you run into. Like if you have one cracked area on your screen, you can't touch or swipe through that area. Or if heaven forbid, if it's like you have to type and it's a letter in that area that you could be bad ideas, bad thoughts. But anywho, continuing through tech, Apple faces a lawsuit over its iTunes buy button, which is the most 2% thing, but you'd be surprised. Potential lawsuit is brewing in California that once again highlights the thorny issue of ownership in the digital era. The legal case in Sacramento involves Apple, which could be facing a putative class action over the way it labels movie and TV show purchases on the iTunes store. The leading plaintiff in the case claims Apple's use of a buy button for media is deceptive, as the company can terminate access to purchase content at will and has done so on numerous occasions. He adds he wouldn't have gone through with the purchase or paid as much if he'd known the content would one day become unavailable. I'm not going to read this whole article, but I'm going to give a story because this is something that's very relevant to think of. I have had an older Amazon account. I mean, not Amazon account, an older Apple account or iTunes account. On that said account, I had episodes of The Office. Now, if Apple decides one day, hey, we're pulling The Office from our library, I no longer have those episodes, but I've paid for those episodes. And the interesting part is, and this is gonna show my age. So if you don't want to know, then just keep pressing forward. I was watching episodes of The Office on my iPod Classic. I didn't put many on there because they took up a lot of space. But I still had that as an available feature. And by the way, and this is random, but it just crossed my mind. I am really considering either buying or doing some creative research to find a iPod. And realistically, I may not even need to do all this. I probably can just take my iPod Touch, remove all of the apps from it, and put just some good music. Like, I would like to keep some music just available in general. Like, I'd probably keep, I don't want YouTube. I would probably keep Spotify, and I would keep Pandora for the sake of if I'm on Wi-Fi, I can rock with those. But everything else, and I think I got like a couple of other radio sites that I use. But I would use iTunes on my iPad, my iPod Touch, strictly for just to have music available, because I still have a couple of files that I can go back and access. But yeah, the buy button thing is definitely a big deal, and it's something to really consider in your consumption of companies when you're buying things. That's why I'm more on the wave of I'll stream rather than buy, because if I buy, unless I'm buying it and it's mine and I can get it wherever, whenever, cool. But if it's not, if I'm downloading or I pay for this movie, I should be given the option either to download it or have it available in the event that y'all decide something don't work. Because if, heaven forbid, I'm not on your internet service, I'm not able to watch it. But I'm paying for the streaming service. Or paying for the access. I won't say streaming service. Paying for the access to be able to utilize it as long as it's on your app. So, running into continued lawsuits, Reddit is facing a lawsuit for failing to remove child sexual abuse material. A woman has sued Reddit for allowing an ex-boyfriend to repeatedly post pornographic images of her as a 16-year-old. That's nuts. The lawsuit supplies controversial measures instituted in 2018 under FOSTA-SESTA to a site that's drawn particular criticism for child sexualization. The resulting case will test the limits of platforms' legal shields amid ongoing efforts to pare back the law behind them. The woman, identified under the pseudonym Jane Doe, argues that Reddit knowingly benefits from lax enforcement of its content policies, including for child pornography. She claims that in 2019, an abusive ex-boyfriend posted sexual photos and videos that he taken without knowledge or consent. But when she alerted Reddit moderators, they could wait several days before removing the content, while Reddit administrators allowed the man to keep posting and create a new content when his old account was banned. Because Reddit refused to help, it fell into Jane Doe to monitor no less than 36 subreddits that she knew of, which Reddit allowed her ex-boyfriend to repeatedly post child pornography. The complaint reads, Reddit's refusal to act has meant that the past several years, Jane Doe has been forced to log onto Reddit and spend hours looking through some of its darkest and most disturbing subreddits so that she can locate the posts of her underage self and then fight with Reddit to have them removed. The woman is seeking a class action suit representing anyone who had similar photos or videos posted on Reddit while they were under 18 years of age. She's accusing Reddit of distributing child pornography, failing to report child sexual abuse material, and violating the Traffic Victims Protection Act. This is serious. It's unclear whether the ex-boyfriend, who would be fully liable for posting the images, has been sued or criminally charged. The complaint cites FOSTA-SESTA, an amendment to Section 230 of the... Wow, this is a lot. I'm going to read this paragraph and then I'm going to unpack this. Section 230 provides a broad legal shield for interactive computer services like Reddit, limiting their liability if users post illegal content. But the 2018 FOSTA-SESTA will be removed. The FOSTA-SESTA bill remove protections for sex trafficking related material. The lawsuit apparently argues Jane Doe's case meets that definition because Reddit's advertising revenue turned the video into a commercial sex act. Reddit has to do better. the admins, it's tough because admins have an ability or have a power to practically do whatever they want with a program. And I'm going to share this because I somewhat have before. I use just about any platform, just like most of the rest of the people I know. Once you posted that information on a platform, it's no longer your content or yours. You're using that space as a housing space to post whatever it is that you're sharing. So with that being the case, if that company decides to take it or use it or not be mindful in how it affects others, ain't shit you can do about it. And it's so fucked up. Like, when I tell you I'm not a fan of it at all. I've never been a fan of how social media carries like such a huge weight to it because it's social media, but then it's also an unfair or an uncontrolling place to handle what you're doing. Like, even down to something as small as you use a place to hold podcasts. That place that holds your podcast can say, hey, we're going to take all your podcasts now. And there's really nothing you can do about it. Because it's all going to come down to agreements and terms and conditions, which 85 to 90% of us do not read. So it's knowing where your data is valued and treated properly. I say those things because Reddit is in power to handle this the right way, and Reddit doesn't want to. And now she has to file this lawsuit all because of this happening. And it's just, I'm just not a fan of that at all. I'm really not. And I'm not just saying it just because, like, I really don't. Things like this just don't make it doesn't make it any easier. Like, even when you're trying to, like, get ahead, it's like, oh, cool. We're back behind now. Awesome. So it's just, it's trying to find that first step to get on the right path of some sort. That's literally where I'm at and how I look at it. So that's what I have for that. Our next story, and I'm gonna probably go through these. Well, I don't know why I'm rushing through. It's only been a little over an hour. From a designer's perspective, I'm gonna love talking about this. Microsoft is changing the default Office font, and they want help to pick a new one. So the options that they have are Bjorkstad, Grandview, Seaford, Skener, and Tenorite. I am glad they didn't pick Comic Sans. I am glad they didn't pick Verdana. I knew those weren't going to happen, but just the fact that they're picking it tells me a lot. If I remember correctly, give me a moment. I'm going to check. I think the default font right now is with the latest Office is Calibri. And any of y'all that's been, and it's in the article, but I just didn't want to read it because I'm lazy. But yes, Calibri is the default baby or the default go-to that most people know of. With fonts or with writing. With that being said, I look at the fonts that they have listed. I'm in between on Skeena and Grandview. Those are like the first two that give me the vibes that I'm going for with, hey, this is the default font. Let's see. Microsoft is changing its default Office font next year and wants everyone to pick their new default. While there are more than 700 font options in Word, which a lot of people may or may not know that, Microsoft has commissioned 5 new custom fonts for Office. Of course, that's going to freeze, so we're not about to deal with that. No, where is it? They're probably going to ask me save, don't save. All right, cool. Sorry about that. Microsoft has commissioned 5 new custom fonts for Office in a move away from the Calibri font that has been the default in Microsoft for nearly 15 years. The 5 new sans serif fonts feature a variety of styles, including traditional, modern, and even ones inspired by German road and railway signs, which I didn't even realize. Microsoft is starting to gather feedback on these 5 new fonts today, and it plans to set one as the new Office default font in 2022. Tenorite, and they give you kind of a breakdown of each font. And actually, they give you a nice image with each font being used and how it looks. And they use my favorite statement: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And if you don't understand what that means, it's literally like I wouldn't say the lazy. It's just a simple message to kind of use. So they have the fonts available in Microsoft 365, so you can try them out before a new default font is chosen. And once the decision is made, it will appear in Microsoft Office apps in 2022. So, like I said, we'll see whatever that font is. If this story comes back around, and we will definitely be unpacking it. CES 2022 will be in person in Las Vegas. This is going to be next January. They did do it as an all digital event last year or this year earlier on. They're going to go back to in person. Around 1,000 companies, including Amazon, AMD, AT&T, Daimler AG, Dell, Google, Hyundai, IBM, Intel, Lenovo, LG, Panasonic, Qualcomm, Samsung, and Sony are on board for the event, according to the CTA, with more being added. You'll also be able to attend digitally. Plans for the event will evolve depending on coronavirus safety measures from the Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention, the CTA noted. We're thrilled to return to Las Vegas, home to CES, for more than 40 years, and look forward to seeing many new and returning faces. Hundreds of executives have told us how much they need CES to meet new and exciting customers, find partners, reach media, and discover innovation. And this was from Gary Shapiro, who's the association's president and CEO. This was written in a release. So I think this is going to be a big, it doesn't, in its initial share, it may not seem like a big step in the right direction, but this is a story without it knowing it's being a story. So I'm definitely going to, I personally don't think CES is talked about enough, but it's not talked about enough because not everyone understands kind of where CES comes from with their presentation or their approach, but it works. So I like the move. Like I said, it sucks because I was talking about earlier, E3 isn't coming, but hopefully, like I said, we're in the midst with COVID, and everyone's, doing their part with vaccines. A lot of people aren't going to get vaccines, and I understand why, and I don't make that into an argument, but hey, it is what it is. I was back and forth initially about whether I wanted to do an Ask of the Week. I'm not going to do an Ask of the Week. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'll give you a music sesh. What I've personally found is an AirPod Escape or music sesh. I've been listening to some great new releases this year. Or not this year. This week, there were some pretty good cues or pretty good songs that came up for the release radar. So I want to share some of what I found, and then we'll get into I have a message. I had this article available for a while, but I didn't really talk about it because every time I was going to talk about it, I never did. But when I did my integration of browsers and changing of names, this article is stuck. So I am going to address it. But anywho, Quickly has a new song, which I like, pretty dope. Godfather of Harlem soundtrack, they have a song with Rick Ross and Cruel Youth, No Bark When I Bite. Pretty good song. I like it. I am giving Dram his flowers. Dram has rebranded himself to his birth name, Shelly. It is now Shelly, FKA Dram, which is formerly known as. And he did a song with Erykah Badu called 93 Acura Vigor, which is a nice, smooth song. I've listened to it, but I need to give it like another listen again. I listened to Brandy's new song, Where Are You Now, which I believe is from the Batman soundtrack. Billie Eilish has a new song. I listened to it, gave it a quick listen. It wasn't too bad. Oat Mellow, Light Years. If you get a chance, check that song out. It's pretty cool. Anyone who wants to ask, I'll go ahead and get it out of the way now. I have not listened to Khaled's new album. I'm personally not in a rush or in a space where I need to listen to that album as quick as everyone is presenting and addressing it. So if it happens to be something that catches my attention, or it just happens to land in my lap to say, oh, let me listen to it, cool. But I'm not hunting anyone down to play it. That's kind of my overall observation about it. But and before I forget, Knots, Rhapsody, K Turner, Rod Digger, Nikki Greer all came together to do a song called Black Woman. Nice song. It's a great song. It is a song that I was like, okay, I can go back and kind of get this a play a couple times. I'm trying to think if I got any new liked songs from any new releases, and I want to say the answer might be no. Oh, great. I don't think my like list is updated. Awesome. Probably hasn't, because I catch what I can, when I can, how I can, because it's hard. Give me 1 second to look this up, and then we will wrap it up. Yeah, so I got Light Years. Handheld GPS is one that I found. It's pretty cool. A nice song. But I don't think that was from the new release. That was just a song that I happened to listen to. And that's where I'm at with that. A few months ago, and this will be part 1 of 2 of Pass the Message. A few months ago, a friend of mine, it was early this year. It was an article that I found and was shared with me about why silence is so powerful for introverts. I have gained a better understanding of the introvert world. For the longest, I've always considered myself as an introvert, and doing podcasting, I learned otherwise. If you listened to episode, I believe it was 323, that even came up as a fun conversation with Dr. Spriggs, as far as me claiming to be an introvert and knowing that I really wasn't. So I have, and even down to I've sat in conversations and talked with people, and it's been a thing of introvert, extrovert, who cares? Like, be you, be proud, be happy. And I think that's the most important part. But I know a lot of friends who are very good at a lot of things, but one thing they're great at is being introverted. And it's an even more interesting thing because she's not going to hear this podcast until probably after. I found this door, what do you call it? Like, it's like a do not disturb door handle or door thing that you put on your door. And it basically says introverted, do not disturb. And I thought it was cool because it's called a doorknob hanger. And I found one looking for myself, which I was like, all right, I got this one. I like it. I'm going to use it. And it's on point. But then I saw some other ones and I was like, these other ones, one of them I'm going to be using soon because it's going to help with me working on stuff when I'm like, hey, I'm studying, do not disturb, or hey, I'm creating content. But I found one about introverting because I know someone that's an introvert. And bringing introverts out of introverted spaces can be challenging at times because you're trying to find that way to approach how you talk with it. But then it's the other side of not bringing them out of the space and letting them be in their silence and in their calming and their relaxing. Excuse me. Silence is very powerful to introverts. Recently, I found myself immersed in an introvert, and this is an article that I found. I'm going to have the article in the show notes. Recently, I found myself immersed in an introvert wonderland in the mountains of northern Thailand. While attending a yoga and meditation retreat at a tranquil ashram, I experienced silence in a whole new way. I was with a group of about 20 participants, and though much of our practice radiated a quiet energy, there was still, of course, a fair bit of conversation at meal times and throughout the day. It was uplifting to meet others on a similar journey, and I was enjoying making new friends. However, in true introvert form, after a few days, I found myself losing steam and seeking solitude. Then on the third day, something wonderful happened. Our instructors informed us we were going to enter a period of collective silence. After our evening discussion, we were not to speak until the next afternoon. I was, to put it mildly, ecstatic to be given this permission to remain quiet. Silence leaving Wonderland and returning to real life. Silence. Since leaving Wonderland and returning to real life, I've thought a lot about why silence is so powerful for everyone, but especially for introverts. So there are 4 reasons, and I'm not going to read them specifically, but I'm just going to read the 4 reasons. Silence gives us space to process our experiences. 2, silence invites us to appreciate our surroundings. 3, when silence is shared, you connect on a deeper level. And 4, silence nourishes the body. And it gave me a new, even broader respect for handling and understanding the importance of silence, or understanding that it doesn't always have to be about, hey, I got to be the loudest in the room. We got to do 1,001 things in this one sitting. It can be, maybe we just need a moment to just absorb the calm as it is and be okay with that. And a lot of times our silence can challenge us because it puts us in our head. So my first message that I'm going to pass along is to any of my introverts, or any of my friends who are introverted. If that silent space is calling you, take it. If that means that you got to be a little distant and say, look, I'm in my bag, I'm being a little chill, I'm being a little standoffish, but it's not to you, it's just life. Take that time to yourself and get you where you need to be to build yourself into a better and stronger position. That's number 1. Number 2, and I'm gonna run my time as best as I can, because y'all know how I do. And anyone that's been listening to the podcast will always know when I'm getting near the end. When you hear that iPad closing, I'm getting iPod and iPad all confused today. Confused and confused. Because then we get into we just gonna talk. 2 weeks ago, never mind. Y'all might not get that reference, but it's okay. A little over 2 weeks ago, I started a thing. I didn't know that thing would be something I would enjoy. I did it one day, and I didn't think about it until after the fact. I was like, this could be something I could do every day, and I did. I'm gonna make my TikTok page be more podcast oriented as time progresses. But right now, I'm having a lot of fun just presenting content as it's available. Using it and making it more available and more accessible in hindsight. I want people to find their way to get to what they want. And I know that's a weird transition from what I just said about TikTok, but I'm unorthodoxing a little bit with this, and you'll see why in a second. And I've shared this as one of my quotes or one of my messages when I guess it's been called Car Chronicles. That's what somebody else gave me the term of, but I don't really want to use something. I kind of almost wanted to be BT behind the wheel. I don't, like BTW behind the wheel or something. Or behind the wheel with BT. I don't know. It's something like, it'll make sense at some point. I'm still messing around with even trying to come up with a lot of the ideas that I come up when I sit in my car just happen on a whim. But one of the messages I shared when doing this is find your lane. Be comfortable in your lane. If your lane needs a little rocking and a little challenge, get out of the lane and try something else. But don't be so afraid to try something else that you're on that one lane and happy. Like you need the other lanes to get to other things, to other places. When you're driving on the highway, and no, take that back. I'm not even using the highway. I'll use city. When you're driving to get somewhere, you're going to go to where your traveling takes you. In some cases, your traveling is going to take you on a straight path. In some of your driving, you're going to run into those points where you may need to go left or go right. In going left or going right, it's not taking you off course. It's just taking you where you're trying to get to, which is your destination. Your destination is just what it is. It's your destination, not someone else's destination and what they think you should be doing. It's you trying to get to where you want to be and to where you feel you belong. We see others doing what they're doing and we're proud of them. We're excited about it, but we got to also find our way. So I want everyone who listens or has gotten to this point of the podcast to take that true time in being who you are and finding your path to get to where you're trying to go. I always say it on the podcast each week, be a better version of yourself, or you should be pursuing a constant quest to be the best version of yourself and improve upon whatever you have or haven't gotten right along the way. If you aren't the best drawer, don't give people who can draw a hard time. If you aren't the best writer, don't give people who are good at writing a hard time. Value their gift and support them in their gift. I shared this on in some posts a few days ago. I think I shared this yesterday. Anything that's involving toxicity and negativity, keep it. A lot of folks around you are going through some shit. There, I said it. They're going through something. But them going through it does not mean that you got to go through it too. And that part is where we challenge ourselves more frequently than none, because they're going through it. We look at it as, it's not saying that we directly and immediately have to go through it right along with them, but we find ourselves in it without having to be in it. We could be in our own thing, but because we're so in other people's things, we're like, man, they're going through so much. Let them go through it. Them going through what they're going through is going to get them to where they feel they should be. But don't let what they're going through affect you from getting to what you're trying to do. And that part of that portion of it is where and how our challenges truly, that's where we really run into our challenges, and our routines can become a little overwhelming at times. So that's all I got for y'all today. Like I really, want to see everybody. And I know we hear people say this, but I personally am on board in saying it. I want to see everybody around me win, but everybody else got to want to see themselves win too. If it ain't your position, and I'm giving extra gems and I'm giving a lot of messages to pass along because I really want this to be authentically received. If you ain't in the space that you want to win, I got no problem with that. But just understand, somebody out here want to see you win. If you happy with not winning, stay as a not winner. The winners are going to move. The winners are going to shake. The winners are not going to sit rigid and complacent. I promise you. I guarantee you they won't. Because they have bigger things in store and they got other shit that they trying to get knocked out. Not figuring out that, man, what if it would have been nice if I could have been doing this? I really was trying to get this done, but I ain't got this done. So it's about knowing what you're trying to do and how you're going about doing it. And that is also the intertwining of the plan and the organization and the routine and the alignment and the transition and all of that. So that's what I got for y'all today. I hope y'all have an amazing weekend. You go into the week awesome and strong. You let May move you how it moves you. You put your best foot forward. And I'm saying that to myself. Like, put your best foot forward, Brian. Brian is going to put his best foot forward. Because if I don't, ain't shit getting done. So, as I always like to close out, I hope you all do well with this time of your life. And just know that there are people who care. Until next time, this is the Pat signing out. Peace. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of the Past BT Pod. I hope you gained something or walked away with some worthwhile information, whether it was related to any of the information provided about sports, about music, about technology, or possibly my personal fave, the Pass the Message. We want you to come in with an open mind and an open heart and walk away with something that's going to benefit you and carry you through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life. And that's the main objective here on the Pass. So I hope were able to receive that. If you are looking to get find a good place to host your podcast, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And if you're also looking to invest in a microphone, a lot of people have their angst or their differences towards it. But I'm currently using the Blue Yeti X, and I've been using it for a little over a year. And it's still to this day one of my best investments I've made. And if I always give this as my closing tip. If you are a creative and you have the space to create, do not do your least to give your best effort towards what you're good at doing. Until next time, y'all take it easy.